Starfield is dead. I know. Who could have foreseen that happening? Maybe there's like 3 or 4 fans left at this point, and I'm probably 3 of them, and even I just want to take a massive blazing shit on Starfield's bloated corpse at this point. But hey, we all knew that this is happening.
I've been thinking a lot about the Elder Scrolls 6. And that is because we are in the part of the Bethesda news cycle where the fact that they acknowledge that they exist and are like, hey, this is still going to be a great year for Starfield. That's news.
Yeah, everyone stopped talking about Starfield. The fans, the fake fans, the real fans, and Bethesda themselves. Todd Howard even distanced himself from this disaster, and that's rare.
Worthy at this point. But hey, I'm not the only one thinking a ton about this. We've had leaks regarding the Elder Scrolls 6 that didn't turn out to be leaks. They just turned out to be fake leaks from 5 months ago that were being re-reported now, because again, that's how desperate we are. But there are parts of those leaks that make sense, and then there's stuff like the upcoming Xbox console, because yes, there is a new Xbox console that is allegedly coming in 2026, and now...
Bro, listen. Xbox looked at PlayStation doing the PS5 Pro and putting a $200-300 Concord tax on that bad boy, and fans saying, I'm not buying this shit. Less performance for more money? I'm not buying this shit. And Xbox was like, damn, we could probably do the same, boy. We could probably do the same. Yeah, I consoles just don't deserve to exist at this point. It is tragic.
People are speculating, because of timelines we know, that maybe the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be the game that launches with it, but...
Also, is this what you would call great gameplay? I mean, you're driving in a poorly designed automobile where it looks like you are a copy-pasted AI-generated screenshot, and you're scanning whatever the hell that is supposed to be, and this is supposed to be fun, exciting, the next generation of Bethesda game.
Going to be the game that launches with it, but then at the same time, if this is going to be a great year for Starfield, how much are they even working on the Elder Scrolls 6? What is happening with it? Should we be excited for it? What about Starfield? And there's a lot of fact, there's a lot of fiction, and there's a lot of stuff that I think we need to talk about, because I don't have high hopes for pretty much anything at this point, but we still should look at...
I am still looking for someone who's going to tell me I have high hopes for Elder Scrolls 6 at this point. I am still looking for that magical leprechaun type of person.
Why I don't have high hopes, and why I really don't think you should. So hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new here, welcome back. It's nice to see you. Now, if at any point you enjoyed this video, you know that you should hit the like button, but
like, subscribe, do those
especially
things.
Like who we've partnered up with for this video today, and a different version of me is going to tell you about that. Now, for those of you who know the
that sounds absolutely skippable.
big stuff out of the way. Yes, Bethesda has said that they are working on Starfield, which I don't know what that means. I mean, we do. It means that they're working on Starfield, but, like, does that matter? The last thing that we got from Starfield was Shattered Space, and it really put into perspective just how unsuccessful Starfield kind of was. Here was a brand new, shiny...
Less than 6% of the total player base that had Starfield decided to try Shattered Space. That is probably one of the lowest get back into playing this shitty game rates that I have seen in my life. I mean, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred sold better than this, by actually, like, miles.
Expansion to Starfield, and it really didn't make any sort of splash. Pretty much nobody played it, I believe. At least when we look at player counts, it doesn't seem like a lot of people return for it, since Skyrim continues to have way more players than Starfield, even with the hype that would accompany an expansion. And for as much as people will say that Skyrim is an evergreen game and has a million mods to it and all of that, it's still pretty surprising that people who enjoy Bethesda's style of game didn't even return for Shattered Space. Now, that's a pretty good thing, because Shattered Space is not very good, as I've said. But that isn't stopping Bethesda from committing to the plan that they had all the way back since launch of they are going to keep supporting Starfield.
Don't you just love the design? Look at this. The same rock you could see everywhere else in the game. The same whatever the hell that construction contraption is. Looks inefficient. And just with a red shitty tint on it. Which they probably took from Fallout 76 newest expansion. Because that has the same red shitty tint all over it. Yay! This is what you call AAA quality, by the way.
And they are going to continue releasing content for it and theoretically have another expansion in the works. And I really think that at this point in time, we're sitting at a pretty important crossroad of where Bethesda might be heading with their next game. There's a lot of things in the air, but primarily those are three things: technology, evolution, and direction. And we're going to look at all three of those things to get a better sense of where we're headed and what they're doing. And for me, the most interesting part of these three is the direction, the design that Bethesda will commit to. And here's the thing. Bethesda has been very flip-floppy, and while all three of the topics kind of cross over at some point, the direction and the design is one that you can see pretty clearly on its own. A great example of this is Fallout 4, a game that a lot of us really didn't enjoy until it got significantly
Still better than Fallout 3. I will die on this hill. Fallout 4 had more interactions, more options, more choices, more everything than Fallout 3. Go die in your irradiated chamber because your low IQ moon mutant friend says that's your destiny. Have fun.
Worked or improved through
your
the use of mods.
Your dad's a dick.
And stuff like that. But for many of us, it felt like they had left the RPG side of things a bit behind to focus on a shooter. A lot of the things that at least I personally care the most about in a Bethesda style RPG, which are things like reactivity of the world and my choices mattering throughout it, and the overall complexity and depth of the story and how I could impact it, seemed to take a very clear backseat to look, shoot things, loot things, mod your guns, and set up settlements. But this is where a lot of the flip-floppiness comes in, because if we look at something like Far Harbor,
I wonder if Fallout 4 would have been more well received if it didn't actually had your 52 trillion quests of save this settlement generalis. Because the reality is, Fallout 4 was the first, what do they call them? A Radiant quest? It's just, here's a slop version of a quest you have already done 15 times before. Do it again because we need to get you to play this game more. And the thing with this was, I think a lot of people hated this because, again, now we say these words, Radiant quest design and shit. But the reality is, when Fallout 4 came out, none of us knew that. Like, how many of you did, like, I don't know, 10 quests where you're supposed to save a settlement? Because you thought that, oh, this leads to something. This leads to a conclusion or something. And it just doesn't. Turns out this is just a repeatable quest that you get tricked into doing because you think it leads to something, but then you do it until you get tired of doing them because nothing actually is happening. I think that ruined Fallout 4 for a lot of people. And, well, there are other things that weren't great. Like, some story elements. Finding your kid and finding out that he's old is like, oh, I don't care. Wow, who cares? Yeah, a lot of things like that. The Institute. One of the worst parts of Fallout 4 was the Institute. How absolutely insanely busted and stupid the writing for the Institute was. In a sense, first of all, the Institute is these guys who have robotic Roombas that can be mass-produced, and they somehow have not conquered the world, even though they literally have teleportation. They have an infinity army of Roombas. Then they have an infinity army of Roombas that look like you and you can't tell them apart, and they're sleeper agents. And they have, turns out, actually put them in everywhere. Diamond City, the Brotherhood of Steel, everywhere, everywhere. And yet the Institute is this powerless shit fiesta, some magically how. It is kind of absurd how poorly the Institute was written. Okay? The only thing is that is written more poorly than, by the way, the Institute still is the only correct choice. Just saying that, fight me. The only thing that has been written poorer than the Institute in Fallout lore ever is the Fallout TV series, The Brotherhood of Steel there, because my god, those people are just retarded en masse, like Jesus.
That is a great example of Bethesda going back to a reactive world, something a lot more controlled, where the emphasis was more on the story, on how your decisions would impact that story and affect everything that went on having lasting consequences, and decisions that you had to sit and think about a bit more, with very cool implications for the world overall, instead of, for example, the main story of Fallout 4. They even went as far as to make a lot of the reactivity in Far Harbor be impactful to a lot of the companions from base Fallout 4.
Yeah?
And that's a very radical shift in design. And you could attribute it to them not knowing what to do during Fallout 4, or you could also say that they were so hyper-focused on a lot of the elements of Fallout 4 as being the
yeah, it's actually insane how they made Fallout 4, and it wasn't the greatest thing ever, but then they made Far Harbor, and suddenly everyone is happy. And then theoretically, the same people who made Far Harbor are kind of actually making Starfield, but it's the worst Bethesda game ever, some magically how. And I mean, we literally have Oblivion Online, where the Dremora are now trans because reasons. You know, the gods, they are the Dremora, right? Or whatever. Daedra? Daedra, there we go. I'm not a super huge lore buff when it comes to Oblivion and all of those things. Skyrim and Elder Scrolls related. But yeah, the gods are officially trans, by the way. So, that's a thing that we're probably going to encounter in Elder Scrolls 6. An explanation why the gods are unironically, canonically trans. And, well, one of the most massive updates that Elder Scrolls Online has gotten is the introduction of non-binary helper, sidekick, companion that you can recruit. And considering non-binary is literally the cheapest way of trying to beat Bethesda, kill me now, please. I'm in constant pain, as Boogie would say. Considering non-binary is literally, there's no way to tell. That is, okay, listen, non-binary is the strangest of mental illnesses, because that's literally like, okay, I'm non-binary, that means I have to do nothing different. I just live how I live. I don't have to change anything, but I'm non-binary. You got that, you bigot? And that's it. And you get to tell everyone that you're non-binary, because otherwise they will never know that you're non-binary, because you just live the same life you always lived. You just now are called different. 10 out of 10. What a time to be alive.
future of their games, which is understandable because at the core of everything, they still are systems based, even if it's systems that maybe we didn't want from them as much. And then after that, they refocused and were like, oh, well, there's a lot about our games in general, right? They're very big things that a lot of people like for different reasons. And while we might have satisfied a lot of people with what is in Fallout 4, the base game, we have not satisfied a lot of the other things. Let's do something for that. Let's do something more on the story RPG reactive side of the world. And you might normally think, oh, wow, that's like a lesson that they should learn and then take with them moving forward.
Sure.
But no, this is Bethesda. So we got to see the same exact thing happen with Starfield, a game that is arguably even more systems based than something like Fallout 4, and that does move a lot of its stuff forward, but it even more so abandoned a lot of the stuff that people wanted. It sacrificed a lot of the essential parts of a Bethesda game in order to make the space simulation come to light. Exploration was severely neutered, reactivity was reduced.
Exploration, how much neutered was it? Well, it was like this. Here's where you need to go to unlock the mysteries of space-time, multiple dimensions, and effectively what is a one-to-one reskin of Dragon Shouts, but it's called Space Dragon Shouts now or something like that. Who cares? You need to go to this temple that's on this forgotten world that no one has, and there's a mining outpost next to it. And there's some kind of minor science settlement next to it. And over there in the distance, there's another something settled, okay? Do none of these people care why there's literally rocks floating? Better yet, even, why do we not... How the hell no one found this shit, considering there's little gravitational anomalies constantly there? And every ship has an ability to scan the world for gravitational anomalies in this in Starfield. How? Like it's one of the most poorly made worlds ever.
I'm one of the people who thinks that a lot of the mission.
Hey, with Starfield we have space mechs, but no one uses them because they're illegal. Why? Don't know. But they're illegal and. The outlaws, the pirates, yeah, they also don't use space mechs. Why? Because they're illegal. Yeah, it's not good. Not good.
Design in Starfield of like the actual quest and the set piece based stuff is actually pretty cool and pretty fun, but not its story, not its reactivity, not the way that a lot of things do. I think Starfield gets a lot of bad word of mouth, and most of it is deserved, but I also think that the few things that it does well, nobody like pays attention to. Like, it does make the action style, like linear story set pieces better if you want to look at it like that, which is something that is very much applauded in other games like Cyberpunk, for example. It did address stuff like being the most powerful person in the universe, like in Skyrim being omni-powerful, but you don't get recognized by it. That's one of like the flaws in reactivity, and Starfield directly tries to address that. But overall, it sacrificed.
Do they? Do they? Did they actually do that?
So much of what these games were, including that sense of exploration and a world that is more reactive, and a lot of the more traditional things.
In a world where on average you encounter a loading screen every 2 minutes of gameplay.
Things that people had come to expect from Bethesda when looking at Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim. And along came Shattered Space, which is just another great example of Bethesda flip-flopping. It is them straight up saying that they acknowledge that they didn't provide a lot of the things that people wanted from their sort of game.
Yes. House Maroon. Let me tattoo random shit on my face because reasons.
And here is a completely handcrafted open world for you to explore that is going to be more focused on its reactivity, on how things work here, on telling a more tight, concise story, and with a structure that could have been taken straight out of a Fallout 3 DLC, or a New Vegas DLC, or a Fallout 4 DLC. You go to a new area, completely self-contained, you solve the problems there with a story that is mostly self-contained, completely handcrafted area, very different from what base Starfield offers, and then you move on with your life. But the problem with Shattered Space is that they failed at doing that, in my opinion. They basically did the most bare bones version possible of what they have always done. The structure that you've come to expect from any of their other DLCs, the very basic way that a lot of the story works, you can see the reactivity and the choices that are thrown your way from a mile away, and you pretty much know where everything is headed right from the drop. And even there, the reactivity and the world building is not up to par with not just other contemporaries that are trying to do this, but with Bethesda's old games as well. I would rather play Point Lookout than Shattered Space. Let's put it that way. So this leads to a very big question. Which version of Bethesda are we getting? Are we getting the recent Fallout 4 and Starfield Bethesda?
Of course you're getting the recent version. We already know that all of the geniuses that made Starfield are now working at Elder Scrolls 6. Hey, the guy that literally made one of the most incoherent, boring, stupidest stories called Starfield and then Shattered Space. Yeah, that guy, He's now responsible for Elder Six's storyline. Have fun! I know it's gonna be a blast.
Bethesda that's going to try and create a world that pushes, I guess, new technology, at least for them, puts in all of these systems and still abandons, once again, a lot of the things that people want from them.
I have no idea, honestly, when people mention the word systems, what the hell they are talking about when it comes to a Bethesda game. Now, systems exist, I guess, but when you do them as poorly as Bethesda, it's like, do they matter? Do any of these systems matter? What are these systems? Outpost building? Why? Why would you do that? If you want materials, just go to a shop, fucking buy all of them, they're super cheap. Oh, can't find it in the shop, go to a planet, make an outpost, make it bare bones, congratulations, infinity materials. Not even joking, by the way, that's how the games work, that's how the game works.
Them just to reintroduce them in updates and the season pass, or have they learned their lesson and really understood from, for example, the very bad feedback to Shattered Space that it's not the idea of Shattered Space that is amiss, it's the execution. The idea is exactly what we want. And at this point, I think it's a coin toss.
Well, no. Okay, listen. You know how every single Bethesda game starts? There's some kind of shitty cutscene, and then you get to do stuff. Yeah, maybe it's the beginning and it's objective, but you get to do stuff. You get to learn to shoot, you get to learn to do this, you get items, you get your pit boys, you get your smack boys, you get to kill a tunnel snake or two. It is what it is. Okay? But in Starfield, this is your start. You are a Dusty. What is a Dusty? Well, that is a miner in outer space because I guess reasons. Because you can't be called a miner in outer space. You need to be called something spacey like Dusty. So that's already a 10 out of 10 world building right there off the bat. Because you get this explained in your face, by the way. Then, the start of Starfield is literally you for 5 minutes doing absolutely dick all nothing in a cave with nowhere to move, with like one black woman telling you about how important you is to her and she be to you and shit like that, I guess. And how you're a proud Dusty and I don't know, I don't even know. And that's for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes in the start, you literally get to do absolutely nothing in the game, and just wait for painfully slow dialogue to conclude, and nothing matters. I don't know. I don't even know if Bethesda is actually in that time period trying to make you care for the fucking mind slaves or whatever the hell those people are. Yeah, but stuff like that happens. I'm saying slaves because when you say I want to leave, she's like, you can't leave. You signed a contract, which means you're a slave now, or something like that. Someone should look into the Starfield's work practices and ethics. I mean, they kind of seem really off, not gonna lie.
Because the reaction to Starfield definitely is informing the design of the Elder Scrolls 6. The Elder Scrolls 6 was not in production by the time Starfield came out. We know this for a fact, that the Elder Scrolls 6 only entered full production after Starfield launched, which means that there is time to react to that. And we know that the team reacted to Starfield by, hey, we acknowledge the mistakes. We're going to focus more on the handcrafted stuff that you like. And if that is the same philosophy that they went into production of the Elder Scrolls 6 with, we might see Bethesda do something good. But with their flip-floppy nature, who knows? Now, informing all of this is evolution. In other words, how they carry forward ideas and try to refine them or re-implement them or make them work better in their game world. This has been a Bethesda classic. You know, again, they're systems-based games. When they design a completely new system that can more or less be slotted into the sandbox that they create, they want to keep putting that system in the future. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the overall RPG leveling structure, if we're talking about...
Okay, so This is one of the worst things, the systems that he's talking about here. I know that this is going to be a sad part of the discussion. But he's effectively saying, considering every Bethesda game is literally the same, it's either you're a dragon form in Butthole, Nevada, or you're a dragon born in space. It doesn't really matter. You're the dragonborn, it is what it is, that's your life, deal with it. Every game is going to have everything the other games have had. So, Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have settlement building that literally no one wants. It's going to have some kind of, I don't know, pimp my wagon type of shit, which no one literally wants. It's maybe going to have the Starfield leveling perk system, which no one wants because it's horrible and boring. Okay? And all of those things. It's going to have all of those things, which no one wants to see, no one wants to play with. That is the problem.
Crafting and modifying weapons and armor. It doesn't matter if we're talking about how you can have your own home. It doesn't matter if it's the settlements and the town building aspect of things. They really like to carry a lot of that stuff forward from game to game and refine. And the problem is that when we sit and look at Starfield and what we can move forward from that game that was truly new to it, is not looking good. Because it's two things that I think are probably in Bethesda's mind linked together, even though they don't need to. And one is procedural generation, which is in many ways the biggest crime that Starfield commits. And the other...
Now, this is one thing I will defend Bethesda on. Procedural generation is not in itself a problem. It's the fact that Starfield had not even too much procedural generation. It just didn't have enough ways to do procedural generation. If you went into a cave, by the time you enter the third cave, you're going to be able to tell, oh wow, this is the same as the first and second cave I went into, because there's like literally only 8 type of tiles in the whole fucking universe, which means every single time you go into a cave, it's going to be the same cave you already were in, and never anything special. And same thing with random generated locations when you enter them. All of them are the same color, the same layout, the same style, and worst of all, there's like 15 tile sets. So by the time you enter the 4th random generated shithole, you're gonna be like, yeah, I have been here before. It's inevitable.
There is ships. It's flying ships, it's the vehicle combat, it's the customization, it's how it blends having a home with, having your own ship. So this is very lightly tied to one of those fake leaks that we saw in the past, because even though that leak is not reputable or confirmed or anything like it, it did contain, like, let's be honest, some of those leaks literally were like, the game will have quests and will have combat. But one of the more interesting parts of it was the idea that you would have a boat. Look at that, also known as a ship, and that you would be able to customize your ship, and that then you could sail the seas, and, this makes actually a lot of sense. Because Bethesda would very much like to move a lot of the technology that they have from Starfield in customizing your ship into the next game, which, if we're going to be in the Elder Scrolls 6, and especially if rumors are to be believed surrounding it being in High Rock or Hammerfell.
By the way, this room perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with Starfield. Look at this. Look.
Because Bethesda would very much like to move a lot of
so you entered the room.
Technology that they have from Starfield.
What's in this room? God fucking knows. God fucking knows what that is. There's a computer. There's this. There's more computers. There's so much random shit in every single room, because this is the first time Bethesda could actually add them. And this is why they had to give you a scanner that actually showed you what is pick-upable and interactable, because everything is just oversaturated with stuff. Like, look at this place. There's a tray here, there's a tray there, there's multiple trays there, a PC, microscope, and another some kind of thingamajiggy.
Starfield in custom.
Look at this. Box. More strange type of boxes, more microscopes now on that side. It's like, why would you have a room and there's a microscope on one side and on the other? Isn't that kind of counterproductive? All of this is just filled with diarrhea and I hate it.
Customizing your ship
Yeah, look at this. Storage box. There's like 15 boxes already in this goddamn single room.
into the next game, which if we're
Look at this. Why?
gonna be in the Elder Scrolls 6, and especially if rumors are to be believed surrounding it being in
There's a box in a box, and then there's, well, these are lockers, which are technically more boxes. Like, why?
High Rock or Hammerfell or both, I mean, hey, a ship could make a lot of sense. You can customize your boat, do your stuff, go out there into the open seas and explore stuff. The problem is if the procedural generation also moves forward and is applied to, for example, that ship exploration, there's a lot of potential of what could be done there. It could be a main part of the game and be absolutely terrible, like in Starfield. It could be just some side activity for loot or something, or like, I don't know, a roguelite mode, who knows? And that would be more acceptable. But in my opinion, none of that would be ideal, because the ideal would be that all of the seas are mapped and have cool stuff to explore in them. When you think of it that way, you're like, oh wow, this is really exciting. That would be awesome. You know,
Don't think, just consume product, and then get excited for next product.
think about something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you have your own ship and there's a ton of stuff to explore, but it's all handcrafted and leads to cool stuff. And I don't understand how the Ubisoft team that made Assassin's Creed Odyssey can pull that off, but Bethesda couldn't. The point is, and the scary thing is, that Bethesda really likes to carry over a lot of what they do forward. So the idea of having like a central base where you have your crew and you go on your adventures with, the idea that when you do that sort of stuff, you're going to procedurally generated areas, or that procedural generation is used in some form to craft the world, is very likely and very scary, because it would be weird that one of the most important parts of Starfield, which was that massive exploration promise, were to just be abandoned. And that idea of the overall world and procedural generation and what happens with it is also directly tied to technology. Look, this is a very uncomfortable conversation to keep
Bethesda updated their game engine and it still looks outdated by 20 years. It is what it is.
having, but how
What
is
a
the
time to be
creation engine
alive.
still a thing? I've got a separate video because sometimes, you know, these
The peak of the creation engine was making dominoes out of sandwiches, if you, by the way, remember. Yeah, literally. All of Starfield's 5 people on Reddit, which I was 0 of because Redditors should be all put in concentration camps for the betterment of humanity, obviously. And those camps would be fun and filled with activities and whatnot. YouTube. Okay, all of that was the peak of Reddit, okay? Just the fact that sandwiches fell and there were physics involved. It was great.
topics are just so sprawling that you have to kind of focus where you can, but so many games exist now that do so many things that Bethesda has done before better. Sure, none of them do all of the things, but is that good enough? Is doing all of the things but not as good worth it? Jacks of all trades, are they really what we want? At this point, when I think of great reactivity in a world, I think of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. When I think of great combat in an immersive sim-style game like Bethesda could be classified in, I think of Cyberpunk compared to Fallout, and I think of Avowed compared to Skyrim. Which, yes, Avowed, not a good game.
Yeah, Avowed not a good game, and maybe you only used 2 abilities all game long, but at least the combat was better. But it's true, I know, it's strange, but it's true.
Not an RPG, but its combat is actually, like, good. It's the one thing I kept thinking while playing through all of Avowed is, if you put this movement and this combat in an Elder Scrolls game, you need to have everything else, of course. This can only be a small part of the game, comparatively. But if it were this good, it would be such a huge jump forward. I think of other games that are looking to risk stuff when it comes to exploration and systems and...
Oh, Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. They actually emailed me saying, "Hey, give us your address, and we're gonna send you a free something deluxe edition thing." And it's real because the ad is from the actual company. So, yes, have not done it, but this is something I am looking forward to. Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon looks absolutely amazing, by the way.
How that works in a lot of their level design. So I think of stuff like Tainted Grail, and I've been playing a bit of Outward recently, and those are some really interesting games in what they do. But the most interesting part about all of that is that games like Tainted Grail and Avowed are on the Unreal Engine, that Cyberpunk is on the Red Engine, which is now gone in favor of the Unreal Engine for the next CD Projekt Red project. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is on CryEngine. And they managed to pull off all of these like such important things that Bethesda keeps saying over and over and over again, that their sorts of world are.
Well, Kingdom Come Deliverance devs actually talked about the engine, and I watched them do it. One of the big things that they are saying is you can't actually make stuff like Kingdom Come and Deliverance in Unreal 5. It just doesn't allow you to do it. It just completely bricks and sucks. The irony of Unreal Engine 5 is people were hyped, including myself, that hey, this is gonna allow people to make World of Warcrafts and games of that nature so much easier, and we're gonna get more games. But turns out, no, Unreal Engine 5 is 200 gigabytes of required space for a 2D scroller with 5 minutes of gameplay, plus it actually can't handle open worlds properly. Like, there are some major issues for role-playing games if you want to use Unreal Engine 5.
Only possible using the creation engine, that it is an essential part of everything that they do. Because it's been like that for a very long time. They've just been iterating on it. And I think that they've convinced themselves that this engine is the necessary component at the heart that makes their games tick. And I think that's a fundamental mistake, because it isn't. And the engine and its limitations are very clear. This is something that I think people need to be more aware of. One of the main reasons that the industry is shifting towards using other people's engines is because you have gigantic companies dedicated to working on those engines, on facilitating as a dedicated job more tools, more flexibility, and more streamlining, more everything for the use of their engine so that you can accomplish your vision with it. Now, of course, there's always going to be bruises coming up with that, because you might have a very specific vision that just can't be fulfilled by some of these engines. But then you have to outweigh that with creating your own engine, which the problem with that is that it's very expensive, very complicated.
Okay, I think we're done with very expensive. No one cares. Okay? Bethesda, just make a good game. Spoiler alert, you're never gonna make a good game. Everyone knows that. That was Bug Thief 10 out of 10. Bye.